Hi, Brandon Davis with Davis CPA Group. Today I want to talk a little bit more about disaster recovery and what to do from an overall preparedness standpoint. One of my previous videos I did was basically about the SBA programs that are out there. Right now, again, we're in the middle of this COVID-19 pandemic with where we're at today. And so what I want to talk about a little bit is just things to be thinking about or maybe lessons learned from the environment we're in right now, right? I mean, one of the things that I've said in my previous videos that I'll say again is, this is unprecedented territory that we're in. And one of the things that I think many of us thought is like, it could never get this bad. I hate to be someone that talks from a position of, the sky's falling or whatever else, because I don't feel like that's the case here necessarily, because we're a strong company or strong country. We always will be, and we'll power through and we'll recover from this because, my American arrogance says, we can recover from anything that's thrown at us because that's just what we do. We put our boots on every day, we get up, we work hard, we push through, we persevere, and we succeed. And that's what we're going to do here. But I do want to say the position that we're in from the standpoint of so many jobs lost so quickly, so much government funding having to be utilized at this point so fast is staggering to me and really surprising to me to see this in my lifetime. Thought this was something I would never see. So some of the things I want to talk about are great to say, oh gosh, I wish I would have thought about that, or I wish I would have known that, because hindsight's always better than what we've got from the standpoint of foresight. So the biggest things that I think, as I kind of talk through this, some of my clients that have been impacted in certain industries that have been impacted, like the hotel industry, the restaurant industry, even the dental industry, frankly. And that's one that I think is getting overlooked a little bit. The American Dental Association, basically a week or so ago, strongly encouraged that dentists close their doors for a period of 3 weeks at that point, and now they've pushed that even further. Because of what dentists do with working in people's mouths and things of that nature, they put a lot of particulates in the air, right? So that could exacerbate the spread of this. And so they're really getting hit hard. And so I'm having tough conversations with dentists that are having to lay off employees that they pay very well. They have to look at doing things differently in their practice because it's basically emergency care only. So basically I want to talk a little bit about some of the things you can be doing from a disaster planning perspective. So, all right, disaster plan here. And again, like I said, there's certain industries that have been impacted severely. Like I want to talk about the dental industry a little bit more, because it's one that's you don't think about being as impacted that it is. And you think about, successful businesses like dentists or like restaurants that have been in business for a long time, or even hotels that have a lot of volume and a lot of revenue coming through there to cover all their costs. If everything comes to a screeching halt, the question comes up, are you ready for it? Could you take care of the bills you got to pay, because they're not stopping? Now, one of the things we're getting right now from a government standpoint and from a nation standpoint, because we're all in this together, literally we're all in this together, there's a tremendous amount of grace right now, right? Landlords are saying, you know what, don't pay me the rent because I know you don't got it. Banks are furloughing payments. The SBA programs through the PPP loans and the disaster loan funding, which I talked about in another video, are being made available. Interest rates for the interest rates that banks borrow amongst themselves is near 0%. So the banking or the monetary system is trying to force banks into, hey, get the money out to the people and the consumers so they have the ability to continue to do stuff. But that's also the problem, right? You look back before this and before the disaster hit, the fact that financing and funding and access to capital is so easy, we find ourselves to be over leveraged at times, not only from a business standpoint, but from a personal standpoint. So I think one of the hard lessons we're going to learn from this is looking at your balance sheet, right? I've talked in many videos before about your personal financial statement, your PFS, on your business. That's also called your balance sheet. And what I'm talking about primarily is I'm talking about debt and I'm talking about spending, okay? One of the things that I think we need to think about here, and I'm going to go ahead and put number 4 on the board, is cash reserves. I think we need to be in a position where, look my E out there, I don't write too well, so just listen to me more than read my writing. But cash reserves is something that we got to be thinking about, because I was having a conversation with one of my clients, and he's like, I think I'll have to close down for 3 or 4 weeks and He goes, I'm just going to file bankruptcy. And I was like, well, hold on. We think you're going to be okay. We'll get through this together, and we'll walk through options and ideas and whatever. But it's just that knee-jerk reaction of the mounting pressure of all the expenses you have to maintain, and thinking about, can I keep payroll in place or can I not? I got my note payments to make. My kids are in college, and all these expenses run through your head once the security of that cash flow stops. And so one of the things I think we need to think about from a disaster planning standpoint is, I like to be a big proponent of having access via either a line of credit, which is financing, but not use a line of credit, have it available, or cash reserves to cover your expenses. And one of the things I tell my business owners, it's good if you could cover 2 to 3 months of business expenses with zero revenue. Now, if you have cash reserves to cover, 6 or 8 months with limited revenue, knowing that, generally speaking, it's not going to completely stop, although this time it did for some. And so if you have a couple of months worth of fixed expenses always available to you, it might get you through this pandemic, right? If you're forced to close down for 8 weeks, it'll be a painful process, but at least you can get through it and get to the other side and not have to fold up. But again, we're in a situation where we've got a lot of assistance, a lot of grace from other businesses. I'm giving my clients grace. I've got my vendors are giving me grace. So we're all like I said, the two things I've been hearing more this last couple of weeks are unprecedented, and we're all in this together. But frankly, it's both of these things. And I think as people and as citizens of the greatest country in the world, we've got to make sure that we continue to show that grace, we show patience, and we kind of work to kind of get through this process. But at the same time, let's figure out some lessons that we can learn here too. I'll stop preaching. I feel like I'm getting ready to do an altar call or something. But anyway, personal financial statements, those are important to revisit at this point, right? Let's take a time to look at our current assets and our current liabilities. The stock market has taken some hits, right? We came off a banner year last year with 20 to 30% gains in our portfolios, to now most of those being wiped out, or those gains being wiped out. Don't panic. We have a strong economy. The fundamentals are there, so it'll come back. But we got to look at our PFS now. Okay, if our value is down, if you recall back to my video, we talked about personal financial statements and assets and liabilities and such. Well, the asset side of my balance sheet is down, my liability side, and then we have our net worth down here. I don't know why I'm circling these, but I am. But say, our cash numbers are down, or our investments are down, our liabilities may be the same, they haven't changed, so now my net worth just dropped. Well, you need to make sure that you can manage this liability number, because now your cash flow may not be enough to cover what it is, depending on where your sources of revenue come from. So I think having a plan in place where you have some assets available to cover your liabilities and make sure you have a strong positive net worth, or be working towards that. One of the things that there's people out there like Dave Ramsey and things of this nature that talk through ideas and plans and ways to become debt free. I don't think debt's a negative thing, and I don't think debt is evil. I think debt is a tool, and used properly, it can be a way for people to kind of advance their situation or advance their business. But certainly we got to be careful that we're not overextended, so we can cover the cash flows and make sure that we have cash reserves built up before we spend our money to enjoy it. So that's kind of the big takeaway on my first thing here on disaster planning. The next thing that you want to do from a disaster planning standpoint, so I guess cash reserves is probably number one here then, right? We just kind of sum everything up in cash or savings. Make sure you've got plenty of that to weather a storm. And I say 2 months worth with no income coming in. The second thing you want to do is surround yourself with good resources, right? You want to have a good CPA. You want to have a good banking relationship with your banker and an attorney, maybe even your financial planner. So, our financial advisor. So you've got all these partners in place before something bad happens. So you have relationships built. You have a good relationship with your banker. Say, I need capital, or I need help financing, or I need to defer some payments. You've already got that in place. You got your CPA working on information on a regular basis and planning for you, saying, hey, we've been talking about how to get this built up. So your CPA might say, you're going to be okay. And here's some things you need to do from the standpoint of maybe reducing salaries or furloughing workers, or looking at what programs are available with the government right now, like shared work programs on unemployment, or different ways to be creative in making it through whatever disaster you're dealing with. And then just the other two are kind of just, makes sense from a legal perspective and a financial planning perspective to have a good team in place. So that's the other thing from a disaster plan standpoint that I would recommend. The third thing here is, obviously insurance coverages are important. Now, some of these disaster pandemic things may not be covered, but your insurance coverages in a time of disaster, you always want to make sure you pay your insurance premiums, right? Because disasters aren't always economic. Think about I'm from Southwest Missouri, so we had a major tornado here several years ago, and that was not only an economic disaster, but it was also a property damage disaster. So making sure you're properly insured in all the areas that you can be will help in your disaster planning. So that's something else that we want to think about now we've got this disaster kind of forefront in our minds. The fourth thing, or just another thing, I'm not sure I've got a set number we're going to go over today, but another thing to think about when you're looking from a disaster standpoint or a disaster plan is actually having a plan. Maybe it'd be good to put together a document or a plan that says, in the event of this happening, here's, and get something out, particularly if you're a business owner, to your team members, or if you're a family or a large family or spread out, know kind of at a high level, where are important documents stored? Where can we communicate together if, our cell phones don't work? How are we going to get a plan in place to be able to, get information out to our employees on a regular basis? Is it all going to be email or text, or should we get everybody's cell phones? So having a plan in place and maybe document that from what you're physically going to do. So that's not really a financial thing, but it's just an overall good business practice, in my opinion. So at the end of the day, we can all plan to do our best and cannot be prepared for everything. Because like I said before, we're in a situation that is not, we've not experienced in the past. We're all impacted by this. Everybody is, from a standpoint of whether it's going to be economically directly or indirectly or what have you. So, I think the best thing you can do, develop some cash reserves and some savings to be in place, have a good team, make sure insurance is up to date and coverage is in place, and document an overall plan or structure that allows you to be ready should a disaster strike. So everybody, please continue to social distance, but be cognizant of what you're doing to help kind of maybe curtail this, because we need to get this thing to go away so we can get back to business as normal.